The Galaxy King's voice echoed through the cathedral-like Senate chamber, his words dripping with triumph as he declared humanity officially extinct. The alien delegates erupted in cheers, their various forms writhing and clicking in celebration. Holographic projections flickered to life above the assembly, showing Earth in ruined cities, reduced to ash, oceans boiled away, the blue marble transformed into a scarred husk. The king's crown pulsed with energy as he gestured grandly at the images. "Behold," he roared, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "The last of the human vermin has been crushed beneath our might. They who called themselves the apex species now exist only in our history banks as a cautionary tale." The laughter that followed was cruel and echoing, bouncing off the crystalline walls like breaking glass. But in the darker corners of the chamber, a few senators shifted uncomfortably. An elderly Zephyrian delegate leaned toward his companion, whispering in trembling tones about old legend stories of humans being deathworlders, creatures forged in fire and violence, who thrived where others perished. His words were quickly hushed by those around him, dismissed as superstition. The Galaxy King continued his speech, basking in the adulation, declaring that the last human resistance had been obliterated on the mining colonies of Kepler 442. Today, he proclaimed, "We have erased humanity from the stars forever." The chamber fell into a moment of victorious silence, savoring their perceived triumph over the species that had dared to defy their galactic empire. Then the massive doors groaned open with a sound like thunder. Every eye in the chamber turned as footsteps echoed across the polished floor, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. Through the entrance walked a lone figure, a scarred human dressed in black tactical gear, each step measured and purposeful. The chamber's triumphant atmosphere evaporated instantly, replaced by a suffocating tension that seemed to press against every surface. The figure's face was a map of old battles, marked by burns and cuts that spoke of survival against impossible odds. As the human advanced down the central aisle, a trembling voice from the upper galleries whispered a name that sent ice through alien veins. "The Baba Yaga, ... double quotes. The whisper spread like wildfire through the assembly, growing from a murmur to a terrified chant as delegates recognized the legend made flesh. Suddenly, the chamber filled with flickering holographic memories, fragments of humanity's brutal history, projected by panicking alien neural interfaces. Images of human wars flashed overhead. Soldiers fighting with broken weapons, civilians turning into warriors when cornered, humans choosing death over surrender. The narrator's voice, transmitted through the chamber's communication system, spoke in hushed, reverent tones about the myths that alien children had grown up fearing, stories of the Baba Yaga, the human who could not be killed, who appeared when hope was lost and turned defeat into victory through sheer, unstoppable will. The projections showed battlefields where single humans had held against entire armies, where the last survivor of a unit would somehow turn the tide of war through pure, concentrated violence. The Galaxy King's composure cracked as he demanded to know how any human had survived his perfect genocide. His voice quivered with rage and something deeper, primal fear that his crown's energy could not quite suppress. The human stopped at the center of the chamber, surrounded by hundreds of alien delegates, and spoke with a voice like grinding stone. "Extinct. You should pray that were true." The words seemed to reverberate through the very foundations of the building, and several senators instinctively stepped back. Guards drew their plasma weapons but hesitated, their training warring with instinctual terror. Ancient genetic memories whispered warnings about creatures that hunted in the dark spaces between stars, predators that became more dangerous when cornered. The king's attempted mockery fell flat as he called the human a ghost, a remnant of a dead species. The alien crowd's laughter was forced and uneasy, dying quickly in the oppressive atmosphere. But Baba Yaga simply raised one scarred finger and pointed directly at the Galaxy King. "Your war isn't over," the human said, each word falling like a hammer blow. "It's only beginning." The silence that followed was absolute, broken only by the nervous chittering of insectoid delegates and the rapid breathing of mammalian ones. The Senate chamber, which moments before had felt like a monument to galactic conquest, now seemed small and fragile around this single human figure. Holographic memories continued to cascade through the chamber as the human's presence triggered automatic historical recalls in the alien data networks. Images of humanity's fall played out overhead, burning cities, shattered fleets, desperate last stands on colony worlds. The narrator's voice intoned solemnly. "They thought we were finished. They celebrated too early." But interspersed with the scenes of destruction were other images. Humans vanishing into asteroid fields, disappearing into the dark spaces between systems. Survivors scattering like seeds to unknown corners of the galaxy. The story of Baba Yaga emerged in fragments abandoned, on a dead world, hunted through the void, scarred by plasma fire and alien claws, yet somehow growing stronger with each wound, forged by pain and loss into something beyond human, beyond alien, beyond alien, beyond alien, beyond alien, beyond alien, beyond alien, beyond death itself. Panic began to spread through the alien factions, as senators argued in frantic whispers. Some demanded immediate execution, while others warned that legends claimed it was impossible to kill the Baba Yaga. Attempting to do so only made the creature stronger. The human casually reached into a pouch and withdrew a small device, pressing a single button. Instantly, alien technology throughout the chamber began failing. Gravity generators flickered, atmospheric processors stuttered, and the king's energy crown dimmed and sparked. Emergency lighting bathed the chamber in blood-red illumination, as the delegates realized that their technological superiority meant nothing against an opponent who had learned to turn their own systems against them. Standing in the chaos of failing systems, Baba Yaga spoke of humanity's true nature. We are not extinct. We are the fire that waits in the dark. We are the nightmare you created when you tried to erase us. The words carried across the chamber with perfect clarity despite the failing audio systems. The Galaxy King, his composure finally shattering completely, ordered his elite guards to execute the human immediately. But the guards, creatures bred for war and trained to feel no fear, hesitated. Their weapons trembled in their grasps as they faced something their genetic programming couldn't classify. A predator that had evolved beyond their understanding. A survivor that had transcended mortality through sheer, unbreakable will. The fight, when it began, was over almost before it started. Baba Yaga moved faster than alien eyes could follow. A blur of efficient violence that left guards unconscious but alive. Mercy that was somehow more terrifying than slaughter would have been. Each movement was precise, calculated, speaking of centuries of combat experience distilled into pure, economical motion. As the guards fell, gasps echoed through the chamber from senators, who had never seen their elite warriors defeated so easily. Some delegates fled, others froze in place, but a few representatives of species, long oppressed by the Galactic Empire, began to look at the lone human with something approaching hope. Ancient myths flickered through alien minds as they watched the impossible scene unfold. Nursery tales returned in vivid detail, stories of the Baba Yaga, the unstoppable shadow that came when you thought victory was assured, the monster that fed on despair and grew stronger from defeat. Children across 100 worlds had been told these stories to frighten them into obedience, never imagining they might be prophecy rather than fiction. The human's voice cut through their reminiscences like a blade. I'm not the last. Humanity rises in shadows across your empire. We have returned. With another press of his device, holographic projections filled the chamber, hidden human fleets emerging from dark nebulae, rebuilt warships igniting engines that burned like newborn stars, faces of survivors who had spent decades preparing for this moment. The Galaxy King's panic was visible now, his crown's energy flickering erratically as fear overwhelmed his control systems. He tried to speak, to reassert his authority, but his voice cracked and stuttered. The human stepped closer, each footfall echoing like thunder through the silent chamber. Other senators began kneeling, some from genuine conversion to the human cause, others from pure survival instinct. Baba Yaga's ultimatum was delivered in a whisper that somehow reached every corner of the vast space. Step down willingly, or watch your empire burn world by world. The king's attempts to rally his supporters fell on deaf ears, as delegates witnessed the impossible, their supposedly invincible ruler, reduced to a trembling figurehead by the presence of a single human. Chaos erupted throughout the chamber as different factions argued frantically among themselves. Some senators prostrated themselves before the human, begging forgiveness for their species' participation in the genocide. Others called for immediate military action, demanding that fleets be summoned to destroy this threat. But their voices seemed hollow and desperate against the calm certainty radiating from the scarred figure in black. The king roared one final time, calling humans parasites and vermin, demanding unity against this single survivor. But as Baba Yaga advanced with that same unhurried pace, the king's words seemed to lose all power, becoming nothing more than the frightened squealing of cornered prey. Face to face with the human, the Galaxy King found himself staring into eyes that had seen civilizations fall and rise again, that had witnessed the birth and death of stars, that had looked into the abyss and emerged not broken but transformed. The chamber held its breath as predator and prey regarded each other across the space of heartbeats. You declared us extinct, Baba Yaga said, his voice barely above a whisper, but carrying the weight of absolute certainty. You made the greatest mistake in galactic history. You gave us something we'd forgotten, a reason to unite. The king's legs buckled as the full implications hit him, his crown tumbling from his head to clatter against the chamber floor, with a sound like breaking dreams. Outside the Senate, news of the humans' appearance spread like wildfire across communication networks. On 1,000 worlds, in slave pens and labor camps, among oppressed populations who had suffered under the Galactic Empire, whispers began to spread. The rebellion sparked not from careful planning, but from pure hope. The impossible sight of humanity's return giving courage to countless species who had thought themselves forever conquered. The king's final desperate order unleashed hidden assassins from concealed positions throughout the chamber, their blades flashing as they descended toward the lone human figure. But their attack was met with counterstrike, so swift and brutal that they were disabled before most observers even realized the fight had begun. As the last assassin fell unconscious to the chamber floor, Baba Yaga activated his device one final time. The chamber filled with the sight of human fleets emerging from the dark spaces between stars, engines flaring like captured supernovas, weapons powering up with the patient menace of inevitable doom. The message was clear. Humanity's survivors hadn't been hiding, they had been preparing. Senators who hadn't already fled now prostrated themselves or pledged immediate loyalty to what they finally understood was not a dying species but a force of nature that had been temporarily contained. The Galaxy King collapsed entirely, his voice breaking as he whispered, "This cannot be. We destroyed them all. We watched them burn. .. Standing over the fallen tyrant, Baba Yaga delivered humanity's verdict in words that would echo across the galaxy for generations. Humanity was never your prey. We were never the hunted. We are the storm that comes after silence, the fire that burns in the void between stars. You wanted to erase us instead. You forged us into something eternal." The chamber kneeled as one, whether from respect, fear, or simple recognition of a new reality. The age of the Galactic Empire was ending, and the age of humanity's return had begun. Walking through the chamber doors as deliberately as he had entered, Baba Yaga left behind a galaxy forever changed. His shadow stretched long across the polished floor as emergency broadcasts began spreading the news the humans had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. Across the void, warships emerged from hiding places among dead worlds and dark nebulae, their engines burning like stars reborn. The narrator's voice, transmitted now on every frequency across the galactic communication network, delivered the final truth. They tried to erase us from existence. They thought genocide was the end of the story. They forgot that humans don't just endure, we evolve. Extinct. No. Eternal.